Hello everyone, welcome to Roundup. For nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia, in short referred to as NGIOA, everything and everyone today can be characterized as digitally disruptive. Or if it is not disruptive yet, it's only a matter of time before it becomes so. This digital disruption concern from across NGIOA as to who is going to disrupt and who will be disrupted, where would the disruption come from and when, is today's greatest dilemma for each and every decision maker across each and every entity across NGIOA. Education faces digital disruption too, as computer code, connected computers, internet, and digital connectivity creates new ways of doing things. It is this potential of new way of doing things that has made the once untouchable educational institutions vulnerable to disruption and fundamental transformation. There is a growing concern that the education system, its framework, model, institution, processes, and structures are not able to keep up with the growing demands of a digital global age. Now, looking at the changes that are already underway, it seems that the ongoing disruption and transformation of education is going to be a very difficult journey for not only the education institutions and the industry, but also each and every nation. The universities, colleges, and their monopoly in the production and sale of higher education credentials seems to be collapsing. As of today, nations are already witnessing technology for free online learning, massive open online courses are rolling out that are helping students of all ages and from across nations, irrespective of geographical location. Millions of students from across nations have started taking benefit from these free online courses or seminars and other formats of education materials. Some education institutions are also in talks to providing credentials for finished online courses. This is just the beginning. As new ideas, innovation, and new ways of educating and learning becomes available in the coming years, universities and education institutions are expected to go through fundamental changes for which perhaps they are not prepared for. As universities experience profound changes, many may not survive in the way they exist today. The road to disruption and transformation of education will require that each nation takes a comprehensive look at their education system, framework, products, operating models, structures, content, and other key elements of the industry at all levels, global, national, and local. Social media, mobile technology, analytics, the cloud, the Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence, the coming together of all of these technological advances is disrupting industries. So the question is, when the role of universities and educators is changing, how are education institutions preparing for the imminent transformative changes? What efforts are underway to survive the disruption? To discuss this further, I'm delighted to welcome Peter Hirst from MIT. Peter Hirst is the Associate Dean, Executive Education at MIT Sloan School of Management. Welcome, Peter. We are honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Wonderful, Peter. So it seems that the last technological disruption in education happened more than 5 centuries ago. Since then, the educator's role and the education industry has remained pretty much stagnant. Most teachers, lecturers, or professors just teach a lesson, prepare a lesson, teach a lesson, give out assignments, take tests, grade to see if the student has understood what they have heard or written down. Is this model really enough in this digital era of what is shaping to be an outcome economy?
I think that's true. You're right that the model of pedagogy that we all too often see in every level of education, not just higher education, where I work, has been fundamentally the same for these many centuries, at least on the face of it. You know, this idea of instruction through lecturing and, as you identified, testing and so forth. I will say, though, I think that if you scratch the surface there, there has been a kind of a quiet revolution going on for at least a few decades, prior even back to what we're now seeing accelerated by digital learning and digital education. For example, here at MIT, for really our entire history, we've had a philosophy of learning by doing, and not just sort of lecturing as the learning model. And you see that mode of learning actually has been experimented with at every level. I mean, everything from the fairly young children in K through 12 all the way up to adult education. So what I think that we're perhaps seeing now with digital, I like the way you frame it as disruption, because in a sense, those developments, even though they were going on, didn't really lead to any transformation. And now we're seeing forces which may be in transformation, but actually in an interesting way. You mentioned MOOCs, the massive online open courses, which has been a trendy thing to talk about for the last couple of years. And one of the things that we've all been discovering with MOOCs is that the easiest thing to do is to, in some ways, have them mimic the way that we were teaching for these centuries before. If you look, it's a video of somebody talking. Maybe if it's a more sophisticated, highly produced one, it's not just a video of a person like my head on camera, but something that looks a bit more like watching a television documentary. But still, it's kind of this broadcast, and then some testing, and then some more broadcasting. And so one of the things that we've been seeing, actually, I think, is that we're seeing that that is not a very effective way for a model for learning either. And we're now really seeing things come together, and that's, I think, what's very exciting right now in this whole area.
Yes, it is. It is very exciting. Now, with the help of digital infrastructure and technology, innovators from across nations are bringing very bold and very forward-looking ideas that are bringing massive disruption in not only cyberspace, but also geospace and space, and in how we all are getting connected because of the connected computers and internet. Now, this disruption is at a scale and pace no nation or any of its component is simply prepared for, even education and academia. So the forces of digital disruption are bringing down established governance, business management, and technology models, and they are magnifying the significance of digitization or digital competencies, and thereby initiating the customer-centric digital global age with an eye on outcome economy. So, how would you describe the ongoing changes of education industry, where the students are the focus, and this because the students are the customers of the universities and colleges, and how are the changes coming, the innovations, or are strategized, or the new ideas or digital strategy is put together, keeping students as the focus? Because if you see, I mean, right now, in spite of this very outrageous tuition that a lot of colleges are charging students, your MIT students that graduates from there, they are not having problems finding a job. But a lot of other colleges, in spite of paying high education costs, high tuition fees, a lot of students, when they graduate, they're not able to find job. Now, there are a lot of complex variables that are, the reason behind that. But is it possible to develop a model by which, we can, create a customer-centric digital educational framework by which, students would not have to worry about it, and they would get the outcome that they are looking for? Because we are all moving towards the outcome economy, where we are looking for, the outcome that we desire.
Right. I think there are several things going on here. I will say, to me, it's clearly true that for the past several decades in the developed economies, and we're seeing this increasingly in the dynamic economies in Asia and other parts of and Latin America and other parts of the world, is that education has been and still is maybe the greatest force for social mobility that we've ever really had in human history, and that's a tremendous thing, and we wouldn't want to see that ourselves losing that. And part of what I think that we've seen, particularly again in the US and in the UK and European countries in general, and maybe less so in some other parts of the world, is because of that sense that higher education in particular, and education in general, is this driver of social mobility. There's been a policy move towards getting more people into higher education. And so that's seen a big expansion in higher education. And maybe one of the questions that some people will ask is, in what kind of disciplines and educational sort of achievements are that growth happening? And I think one of the disconnects that we're now experiencing, it's really it's a labor market failure in a sense, or it's a market failure that uh, the the time delay between people making decisions about what they will pursue in terms of higher education, and indeed how long it takes academia to cycle through that sort of growth curve, means that there's a disconnect between the skills and training that perhaps we need, or our employers need, and what we're turning out of our universities. I think that's what we're seeing a lot of now. One of the things that I've become involved with, you mentioned it in your introduction, is this idea of the Internet of Things and what that sort of new revolution in new ways of doing business means, and what does the workplace mean. And we're talking to companies about what skills they are looking for or going to be looking for. And the interesting thing is they're asking us to train people for jobs that we don't know exist. We don't even know what those jobs are. How do we know what the skills that they need are going to be? I think the one thing that we do know is that people are going to have to be able to skill and reskill, learn, sometimes unlearn. When you talk about whole industries being disrupted, everything you knew to be the case, to be true, or thought to be, is going to get changed in these disruptions. And so I think one of the questions, and maybe this could be a failing of education systems around the world, is that if we're not training the next generation to be people who are really capable of truly engaging in lifelong learning in terms of their professional capabilities and skills, then we're going to have, frankly, a real problem, because the time scale of a generation is not the 20 years that we are used to thinking of a generation now. Maybe it's 5 years, right, for a technology revolution to completely transform an industry. And we need people who are able to bring that appetite and ability to continue to learn. And then the question is, to what extent should employers be taking this on behalf of employees? Should governments be taking this on behalf of their people? I think that from where I'm sitting, that the challenge with that is that certainly for governments to be doing it, maybe even for employers to be doing it, again, these cycle times are getting shorter and shorter. And I really think you're putting a finger on it when you say, how do we put learning and education really in the hands of the consumer? And that's actually the student and the lifelong learner themselves. And if we truly do that, what are the implications for for what the role is of these traditional institutions?
Yes, very true, very true. Those are the questions. We'll have to come up with the sensible answers, and we have to figure out how we can create a environment in which we have this integrated framework by which we can quickly provide the skills that students, that consumers need, or we can quickly adapt to the industry needs, the kind of courses that needs to be, the training material needs to be there. So that needs to be a lot of work, and we need to create that platform. Whoever is able to create that platform that is integrated is going to bring the disruption that this industry so very much needs. Now it seems that universities such as Harvard, Stanford, and I think MIT also provides small private online courses that are delivered on the MOOC platform, Massive Online Open Course platforms, and they are available for purchase by smaller colleges, so they don't have to go and create all those training material. How is this received by institutions all over the world?
It seems perhaps surprisingly to be received quite well. I mean, you might think at first sight that a lot of other institutions would not want to make use of the materials that MIT, Harvard, Stanford, and others are producing. But I think what's going on, a couple of things. First of all, in many ways, I think these online courses are getting used by other institutions a little like equivalent to a new digital textbook, if you like. So that's that's certainly something that's going on. And I also think that for many of them, the economics of trying to maintain a whole portfolio of academic disciplines and the faculty that it takes to be at the cutting edge of those disciplines, is really just very challenging. And so this can actually help those institutions to change their own economics. We've got a little bit of prior experience of this. Before this whole kind of MOOC revolution, you may know that a decade ago, more than that, MIT made the decision to put all of our course materials online for free, not as sort of fully integrated courses that we're now doing, but just the texts, the syllabus, very often videos of classes. And actually a lot of individual learners, but also institutions around the world began using those as the basis for their courses. So I think that it kind of makes sense to me that there will be perhaps some number, whether it's a half a dozen or a few dozen or fewer, what become recognized as ultimately sort of the leading one or two courses in economics, or 101, or those whatever those sort of basic disciplines are. In just the same way that probably if you went across various, at least English-speaking campuses around the world, you probably find half a dozen other, textbooks in any particular subject at that level, that the local institutions and faculty might have some preferences. But essentially, there's not 500 different textbooks that people are using for economics.
Yes, that centralization probably would happen. I think London School of Business and Finance, they also have put the entirety of the MBA course online. So it's very interesting development, because they are saying that whoever wants to study this, go ahead and study, and after that, only if you are sure you want to do that MBA, then you enroll. So it's a very interesting development. Now, so far students used to look to their lecturer as the keeper of knowledge. Now, as information and content has become universal and free, and knowledge is so easily accessible, the skill of the modern educator, the teachers, professors, lecturers, it has shifted away from being the imparter of knowledge to being an integrator of knowledge. It is a very different role that is shaping up of the teachers and educators. So what do you think the change this will, what kind of changes will this bring to the current education system? Because now the information that a professor or teacher can access, anybody sitting in any part of the world, they can access that.
Right. Well, so one thing here, which of course is important to understand as well, is that the sheer amount of knowledge in any field, even quite a specialized field, is now so vast that being the font of all knowledge and expertise on a particular subject, unless it's extremely narrow, is becoming pretty much impossible anyway. And that's being added to at such a rate that even if you look in scientific disciplines, it's just becoming pretty well impossible for people to keep on top of that. So I think that we're not only, you're right, we're not only moving from the content is king in terms of what the expert knows and is imparting to the student, to being much more about context, and that's where your idea of integrated comes in. But it's not only about integrating. I think the even more vital question is how to work with knowledge, assess it critically, really be not about what the ways of accessing sort of the knowledge that you need are. And in fact, I like to say that probably running in-person traditional programs here at MIT for executives, of course we're doing some of the digital programs as well, but my biggest competitor in some ways is just Google and YouTube. Because it's not that my competitor is structured courses that are delivered digitally and are in a sense trying to emulate the level of interactivity and quality of experience that we have in the real world. It's a much more sort of, if you can say, a classic disruption that just good enough in terms of the knowledge and ability acquisition. Increasingly is what people go for, and this is true in my life as well. In a different realm, if something goes wrong in my house now, and I need to sort of figure out how do I don't know, fix a tap or something. A few years ago, I'd call a plumber. Now I Google it or YouTube it, and I'm kind of trying to figure it out myself in real time. So it's just like consumer-driven, just-in-time learning.
Yes,
and that's important for us to remember that we might think that our model. Our traditional model, is so technically superior, as it were, to this other inferior alternative. But time and again, what we've seen in the world of business and in other realms is that consumers and the market don't necessarily make the same judgments that we would
Yes.
have them do from our expert position.
Yes, very true, Peter. And there are such fascinating changes happening. This is such a fascinating and interesting time that we all are living in. And there's so much to talk about. But Peter, you are a busy man, and you have so much to address today. In the hours that are ahead of you. And while I would like to talk more, ask you more questions, we will keep that for some another time. And Peter, thank you so much for participating in Risk Roundup and giving us your valuable feedback. And hopefully, some other time we would talk more about, what kind of strategy the universities here in United States and, globally, they are having to come up with the new models or new innovations or new way of doing things, teaching students, and new way of providing the necessary skill set that the industries need. But we'll keep that for some other time. So thank you, Peter, for participating in this roundup today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Look forward to talking again.
Wonderful, Peter. So digital disruption is already here and it is here to stay. As the wave of digital disruption is cutting across nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia, it is the digital technologies that has brought us on the verge of what will be a period of very profound and fundamental transformational change. It is important that educators, colleges, universities start thinking strategically about how digital disruption is changing the way education is approached, offered, viewed, as digital disruption and transformation is as much about people and processes as it is about technology. It is the people and its ability to define processes, adjust, adapt, and innovate, not the technology, that are the most important pieces in the digital transformation puzzle. Risk Group Cybersecurity Risk Research Center and Strategic Security Risk Research Center are created for this very reason, to identify, evaluate, and manage the risk facing NGIOA in CGS, and means nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia in cyberspace, geospace, and space. We at Risk Group believe that risk management, security, and peace work together hand in hand. Though security is related to management of threats and peace to the management of conflict, risk management is related to the management of security vulnerabilities as well as management of conflict. And it is not possible to conceive any one of the three without the existence of the other two. All three concepts feed into each other. We believe that the security we build for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secure for everyone across nations. Tradition becomes our security. So if we build a culture of managing risk effectively, it will lead us to security, and security will lead us to peace. Let's manage the existing and emerging risks together. For more information on the Risk Roundups, to watch the Risk Roundup videos, or to hear the Risk Roundup podcast, please go to riskgroupllc.com, and do not forget to subscribe and share. Until next time, I'm Jayashree Pandya, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.